I want to start by welcoming everybody to Belfast and to the Engineers Ireland Annual Conference. Those of you that were here last night would have heard the Titanic story, and hopefully all of us here today will actually see the Titanic story, which I suppose is the hook that the conference in Belfast has been lucky to have this attendance. It's quite phenomenal, I think, that we are an All-Ireland organisation, and yet we may have felt that coming to Belfast in 2012 might have led to a smaller conference in numbers, and I'm delighted to say that the opposite has been the case. We have a larger number here today than we had in the other regional centres over the last number of years. And it really challenges, might I say, next year's conference in Dublin, Michael, wherever you are. And it's fantastic to see it. In welcoming you to the conference in Belfast, I am conscious that in meeting in this historic city, we too in Engineers Ireland are making history. This conference is hosted by the oldest and largest All-Ireland professional organisation ever to meet in this city. Last year we celebrated the 175th anniversary of our founding in 1835. That meeting was chaired by our first president, Sir John Fox Burgon, who was then chairman of the Commissioners of Public Works, and it was held in the Custom House beside the quays, the Liffey Quays in Dublin. But today is Belfast's time, and it is Belfast's time to shine. And my goodness, isn't Belfast shining around the world over the last month, and doing so with, as was said last night, a strange mixture of pride on the one hand to the achievements of the city in terms of its engineering traditions, and also humility. Humility around what was a great human disaster when the Titanic sank. Yes, like this great city, we're building on our traditions too. As engineers, we are also part of the innovation world, building on the ingenuity and adaptability of our members, many of whom are challenged by the economic difficulties of our time. This adaptability is very much the theme embedded in the title and logo of our conference, Engineering Enterprise in Times of Change. It is the creativity and innovation of engineers that is driving our economies forward, very much in the manufacturing area in both North and South. Northern Ireland always had a strong manufacturing base. So strong, in fact, that when the Titanic was launched in 1912, Belfast was the largest city in Ireland. It had a larger population than Dublin. Industrialisation did not really come to the south until the middle of the last century, and really took off in the late 50s, 60s and 70s. And as a schoolboy growing up at the time in southern Ulster, I was hardly aware of it. As we entered the new millennium, the rapid expansion of the Irish industrial base was and is truly phenomenal. This was achieved through a combination of direct foreign investment into Ireland and the growth of indigenous Irish business and enterprise. This growth has continued even up to the current day, despite the banking crisis and the perilous state of our public finances. Ireland currently has 8 of the top 10 ICT corporations in the world. We have 10 out of 10 of the born on the internet companies. We have 9 out of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies. We have 50% of the world's leading financial services firms. We have 3 out of the top 5 gaming companies in ICT. And we have 17 of the top 25 global medical device companies. Born out of the creativity and innovation of engineers, we have Microsoft, Intel, Hewlett-Packard, PayPal, IBM, LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Zyneag, and pharmaceutical medical device companies like Pfizer, Merck, GlaxoSmithKline, Schering-Plough, Allergan, Bristol-Myers Squibb, and many other significant firms like Eli Lilly and Mylan, who are expanding as we speak. According to the IDA end-of-year statement in January 2012, there was a record number of new investments in Ireland in 2011. The really significant fact, though, is that of all the new jobs created in 2011, 47%, or nearly half, were from the ICT, science and engineering sectors, while the remainder were from sales, finance and similar business. This was engineering and scientific creativity in action, all feeding into innovation, which in fact is the implementation of creativity by the engineering profession. We have many examples of this creativity at this conference, and I've seen many other examples in my journey around Ireland over the past year. In terms of native engineers from Belfast making their mark in foreign lands, we are very pleased to have with me our next speaker, Dr. Stephen Myers of CERN Laboratory in Switzerland, and very grateful that he was able to make it here this morning. We have many examples of creativity in the home market as well, in the two theme areas of this conference, which are manufacturing and offshore energy. For instance, we have the leading engineering innovator, Eddie O'Connor of Mainstream Renewables, who has, as you know, reinvented his business at least 3 times already, and I'm sure there's a few more lives in him, and we look forward to seeing him too. But from the indigenous manufacturing, we have William Egerton of Dromone Engineering and Colin Elliott of Bombardier Aerospace here in Belfast. We also have leading people in the whole policy and planning area, like Mr. Bob Hanna, another native of the city, Chief Advisor in the Department of Energy in Dublin, and Mr. John Barry, Managing Director of Bord Gáis Networks. Ireland is a small country in global terms, but has always punched above its weight in the world of business. Very many of these businesses are either manufacturing engineering products or services for the home market, or more likely for export markets. They are also the outcome of the innovation system, which I described in my presidential address, starting with our education system through the primary, secondary, third and even fourth levels into spin-out companies which create innovation, and then new enterprise and jobs. As the education system is the seed corn of new job creation, Engineers Ireland for many years have been active in helping to improve the quality of mathematics and science, teaching and learning through our STEPS programme with primary and second level schools. This programme very much extends to our northern region here, where I know our chairman, Peter Quinn, was most active during the year, together with our Director General, John Power. At third level, we also have the Innovative Student of the Year Award, where a biomedical student from NUI Galway, Fiona Griffin, was overall winner last year. Our project looked at the further development of stent technology through keyhole surgery, thus avoiding open heart surgery in terms of coronary medicine. This year also, I set myself the goal of visiting as many third-level colleges and research institutes to encourage the innovation ecosystem. Accounts of these visits are given on my blog, and I was happy that the Director General was able to come with me on most of these visits, places like Tyndall Institute in Cork, Cran in Trinity, Clarity in UCD and DCU, the Marine Institute and NUIG in Galway, UL, Queen's here in Belfast also. We saw how research into nanoelectronics, remote sensing, oceanography, biomedical and aeronautics is currently conducted in Ireland, leading to greater learning, but also the commercialisation of this learning into useful products and services. I think it's time that IDA Ireland and research funding agencies realised that the term life sciences is in fact both science and engineering, and without engineering there would be no commercialisation. So I think this message needs to get across that for some reason is not being realised that life sciences doesn't mean science alone. It means the commercialisation of science, which is engineering. And I think we have a job of work to do there going forward. Engineers as a profession have a flexibility and adaptability that few other professions have in terms of the strength of our core analytical and problem-solving skills, which are appreciable and appreciated in most business environments. Even in Ireland, one of our advantages of our small global scale is the collegiality among the niche companies, computing, pharmaceutical and biomedical, that increasingly couldn't exist other than through the mantle of Engineers Ireland and other professional bodies. This could not possibly exist competition-wise in Silicon Valley, but it takes place in Ireland. And the IDA have identified that as one of the advantages that Ireland has as a small country, to leverage that smallness, which is not small in global terms, but is big in association terms and connectivity terms. We provide this connectivity on an international level as well as a national level through our associations with the UK Engineering Council, Institution of Civil Engineers, Institution of Mechanical Engineers, Institution of Electrical Engineers, the US Societies of Engineering, Engineers Canada, Engineers Australia, and Engineers New Zealand. In fact, the English-speaking world, where unfortunately some of our graduates and engineers now have to go to find work. These connections provide mutual recognition of qualifications which enable the seamless transfer of learning through countries if Irish engineers choose or have to work abroad. Creativity and innovation in the engineering sectors are major drivers of economic growth and development. To be creative, one must do something that has simply not been done before. Engineering must therefore be considered as one of the creative arts, in the same way as architecture, music, and the visual arts. In my visits to various regions around the country, a number of regional committees suggested that I too visit the new visual arts centres in the town. This happened not in one region, it happened in 3 or 4 regions. You must go and visit the new visual arts centre in the town, I was told. And when I saw them, I realised why. I was very happy to do so. But I think it says something about engineers and the fact that the engineers were inspired by the visual arts and the need to provide high-class public facilities to satisfy a public demand for creativity and innovation. And so it was in Carlow, where I went to the Visual Arts Centre, in Sligo, where I went to the Model Nylon Gallery, and in Cavan, and also in Belfast here with the Titanic Story, which is visual arts, very much so, as described last night by Jonathan Heakin, and which you'll see yourself this afternoon in the new Signature building. I find that the engineer can appreciate the arts and humanities much better than the artist can appreciate science and engineering. And I suppose that's not surprising, but let's make use of that fact. Let's leverage our way into new business in this respect. Engineering is a creative art to be viewed and enjoyed. One only has to look at our bridges that year after year are winning the public vote for excellence in Engineers Ireland. Samuel Beckett Bridge the year before last year, the Mizzen Head Bridge this year. People appreciate engineering structures above ground. Indeed, they need to appreciate systems below ground, you would say also. But, you know, the public do enjoy the products of engineering, and we need to use that fact more in the visual arts as well. But engineering is also, apart from being a creative art, it's a technical business built on solid foundations of science and mathematics. And yet, artists and poets never cease to fascinate us. Indeed, the Belfast poet, Louis MacNeice, would never have believed the interest that the Titanic would cause when he wrote in his poem Validation, "See Belfast, devout and profane and hard, built on reclaimed mud, hammers playing in the shipyard." When we look at the creativity that has transformed the new Northern Ireland, built initially on the fragile peace of the Good Friday Agreement, as Yeats said, the peace came dropping slowly. But yet it came, and it came based on the trust of the leaders of both divides. Albert Einstein correctly remarked, You will never solve a problem on the level on which it was created. It needs a transformational driver that transcends the immediate landscape to see the problem on a different plane. I have found over the years that this applies equally to engineering problem solving. Creativity requires thinking outside of the box and, indeed, the letting go of some old uncertainties. I once had a client in the public sector, I won't say who, and I'm glad to say he's not in this room or he won't recognize it, who said, I just don't want to be impressed with your service, PJ. I want to be charmed and inspired by it. And I thought, Jesus, and all on a fixed price lump sum. Ladies and gentlemen, I too look forward to being inspired by this conference. Indeed, I already am. I expect that we will come to realize that it is hard work, more than inspiration, that has brought Belfast and Northern Ireland to this historic juncture. And we know too that these northern characteristics will lead you to an even more successful future. We salute your many achievements, and long may your creative and your sense of surprise survive. We are delighted to be with you this week and to be part of your celebrations, and we wish you and all our members in the Northern region the brightest future that you truly deserve. Thank you very much.